Hello all. We're back. It is class 5. It's hard for me to believe that there's been 5 already, but here we are, class 5, on our way to class 14. So we are doing a daily class every day until the 14th. And I'm so glad that you're here with me today, whether you are watching it live, like I see in the chat, Hunter and Jeff and Tara and Nicole J. Welcome, guys. Great to see you. Love seeing the familiar faces in the chat. That's so cool. That's really, really fun. Feels like we're in actual class because we are. It's just a little bit different these days. Because of the pandemic, a lot of classes have been canceled, or it's just different and hard to find, which is what made me decide to teach this class. And if this is your first day, welcome. If this is your 5th day, welcome. Or if you've caught some on the replay, all is good. Everyone is welcome. Yay. I had a great day, a great Saturday, got some holiday shopping done, did an arm workout. So my arms are hurting me a little bit, but really excited. Welcome to Adam and Helen and Robin who came in now. Hunter says, the quality is great, but don't speak. I know. I moved my modem. I moved my router up. It's just right here. I didn't have all the pieces, which is just 2 pieces to connect totally in, but we're going to have a great class tonight. Hey, Monique, welcome back. Welcome back. Today we are doing something a little bit different. So we're going to do a giveaway, which I'm excited. So instead of having our little quiz show format, we are going to do I am giving you a quiz to enter. You have to fill out a quiz and email your answers to me in order to be entered to win our prize. So I'll tell you a little bit about it after we get about halfway through when we're at that portion. I am going to take a sip of my tea. I'm drinking a delicious ginger peach tea tonight, if anyone has had that. Spot on. Okay. Awesome. We've got Michigan. We've got Montana. I'm here in Seattle. And I'm ready to get started. You guys ready? We are talking just like we did the last couple of days, where we will do a how birth works. We're going to do another coping strategy and practice and questions. Now, if you were wondering if we're going to get 14 actual coping strategies in, am I actually going to find 14 different ways to cope? Yes. Yes. You're going to have a whole toolbox of ways to cope. And I wanted to mention something about coping and about our book. Now, like most of you guys know, I usually or often teach in-person childbirth classes. And if you were taking an in-person class from me, you would get this workbook along with your class fee. But of course, we're doing YouTube class. But I still refer back to this workbook. I call it a workbook, a book. Because I think it's really helpful to consolidate the information that I'm teaching you tonight. So I know I mention it every time, but if you need the workbook, there's a link below about the workbook. But what I wanted to mention is that on page 49, there is a list of comfort measures. And it is a workbook, so you can, take notes and write in it. And it gives a lot of the comfort measures and coping strategies, another word, that you can go through and mark option 1, no thank you, option 2, possibly, and option 3, yes, please. So that's pretty cool. How, you guys, I'm just talking along and I missed the baby announcement from Tim in the chat. Tim had a 9-pound, Tim's wife had a 9-pound, 9-ounce baby boy. Oh my gosh, horse lips, yes. Tim, that is awesome. That is awesome. And that's a nice size baby. That is so fun. Congratulations. That is so cool. So cool. That just made my night. That made my night. Thank you, Tim. Okay, so coping strategies worksheet on page 49. Just want to mention that. Not as exciting as Tim's baby, let me just say. Very, very cool though. Very cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about how birth works. And today, guys, we're talking about monitoring. And I've really gone out and done something exciting. I have found a way to use, where is it? I have found a way to make use of this, again, to teach a topic. Who needs expensive props if you're a childbirth educator? You don't. You just need some fast food drink cups. So I have used the Chick-fil-A cup to teach about monitoring. You will see when we talk about it. Monitoring is something, let me full screen it. Again, you guys are going to add questions and chat and everything in there, which will be great. So monitoring is important for, there are two types of monitoring that goes on when you're in labor. And I want to break down both types and talk about sort of why you would choose one, why you would choose another, and just kind of talk about options and what they're like. And some of you might have even experienced some of this monitoring at a appointment. If you've had a non-stress test, you might have had those monitoring. So there's two things that are monitored in labor, and that is the baby's heart rate, and contractions. Okay, so two pieces of data are tracked, and there are two different ways to track each of these pieces of data. So I really first want to just focus on contractions. So tracking contractions. Now, there is an external monitor for that and an internal monitor for that. And the reason that it's important to track contractions, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, to see how labor is going, so that your care team can find out if contractions are getting longer, stronger, sort of. We'll get to that, and closer together. Okay. So the knowing that lets them know, oh, things are progressing, things are getting, we're moving closer to a baby with the contractions. They also want to monitor the contractions and how the baby responds to them. So it's really normal, not normal, it's expected that the baby has some kind of reaction usually to contractions. Not every contraction, babies sleep through labor, but they have, their heart rate kind of goes up and down, it has a variability to it. And sometimes if babies aren't doing well, then they respond negatively to a contraction. So they need to know when the contraction is happening. Now, if you are unmedicated, then it's going to be really clear when you're having a contraction, when contractions are worth paying attention to, right? Because they're going to have a start, a peak, and an end, and you're going to be probably stopping and coping, using some coping mechanisms. So sometimes, this is my contraction monitor. Sometimes it's not necessarily that not necessary. Maybe because, hey, just look at me, I'm having a contraction. You don't have to see on the monitor. But usually your care team likes to monitor contractions. Now, this is the bottom of my Chick-fil-A cup. I don't have an actual monitor, but I wanted to show you about what it's like. And they're about like this, about this size, maybe a little bit thicker, and they're made of hard plastic. And the monitor is usually put on like the top of your fundus, top of your belly, and it's either hooked on through a stretchy band, like a belt, like a stretchy belt, or some hospitals out here in Seattle, they're doing this. It's more like a tube, like a stretchy tube, kind of like, do we have any Survivor fans here? Let me know in the chat if you're a Survivor fan. They almost put up like a buff, almost like a buff that you get in Survivor, and put the monitor in. That's a new way of holding the monitor on. So the contraction monitor, it's also called, you might hear it called a Toco monitor. And it's called an external pressure monitor. So it measures the pressure changes. So as your uterine muscle contracts, this measures it. What the external pressure monitor doesn't do well is measure how strong they are. So here is where if you've tuned out, or if you're like, I've lost you, come back, because this is a super important piece of information. These monitors, they report up to a display, a screen, and on the screen, it'll show these big, these peaks that we've talked about. The height of them, they're not accurate on the monitor. They don't give an accurate idea of how strong they are. So if you're experiencing a contraction, you're like, that was the biggest one ever, and you look over at the monitor and it looks small, that just happens. And so I've seen partners get into a little bit of a sticky situation sometimes when they are focused on the monitor, and will say like, oh, that one wasn't very big. And she's like, yeah, it was big. It just didn't show up big. Or if partners say something like, oh, here, this one's going to be really big. Oh, this one's really big. It is, though, one of the hardest things to do as a support person, as a partner in labor, is to take your eyes off the monitor, because it's kind of fascinating. It's kind of like, it's almost like watching, I don't want to say sports because it's not that exciting, but it's interesting. It's like a video game or something where you're seeing, the things up and down and up and down. And it's like, you just want to, I found myself as a doula just staring like, oh, is another one coming? Is another one coming? But this is a trap I don't want you to get into. What you should, as a support person, is really be paying attention to the person in labor and not the monitor. The monitor is important, but you really need to pay attention to the person in labor. And I've actually had families, and I've suggested it, is that, you can even cover up the monitor with like an extra towel or an extra gown from the closet. If you guys have gone through the Supporting Her course, which I know a couple, I have the little, look, I'm going to do it right this time. Did I do that right? No, that was bad. I know I've mentioned in the course, there's going to be cabinets like this in the hospital room or the birth center that are filled with extra towels, extra gowns. Just, you can make yourself at home. That's what they are there for. So you can just get a towel and cover up the screen and not fixate on it. But if it brings you comfort, everybody's different. Just don't ignore the person in labor. Okay, so contraction monitor, external monitor, sits right there, belted on. Oh, Adam, great question. Let me put Adam's question on Adam says, is monitoring mandatory? Perfect question. I'm going to go through the different types, and then we're going to talk about this question, when you have to have monitoring and whether or not it's mandatory. So I love it. I love it that you're thinking about that, Adam. So I want to talk about the other type of contraction monitor. The other one is, so this is external. The other one is internal. And if you're wondering what I'm holding here, then you'll know it was from my Chick-fil-A cup. And I'm not exaggerating. It really does look like this. It's called an intrauterine pressure catheter, IUPC. It looks like a straw. It's very flexible. It's longer than this, but it's a straw looking thing. So this is another option for measuring contractions. I said it was internal, so it goes internally up through your vagina, through your cervix, into your uterus, and it's flexible. I've said flexible like 3 times. I'm saying that because if you're thinking like, that seems strange and it's going to go in, it slides next to the baby's head, sort of like this. Okay, maybe like that. And the difference in this one, besides the fact that it's external, is that it can measure strength. So sometimes this monitor is used if your care team is thinking contractions aren't strong enough, or if they're inducing and they need to get a better idea on how strong the contractions are. I see these almost always with inductions more than non-inductions. Not that every induction has one, but if it's going to be used, it's more about an induction. So external, internal, they both do the same thing. Monitor contractions, monitor labor. Okay, the next one is it also looks like this. I don't know why. Well, I have 2 just to show you. So the contraction monitor we just talked about usually goes up high. The fetal monitor usually goes wherever they can find the baby. It's usually lower, and you'll notice when you're in labor that sometimes it's here, and then it starts getting lower as baby is lower. So the external fetal heart rate monitor measures baby's heart rate. So sometimes the hard part about this one, both of them actually have to be adjusted if you move around a lot. So let me know in the chat, is it a good idea to move around a lot, or should you just stay still so that the monitors don't move? Should you try to stay as still as possible in labor so that the monitors don't move? I need to know. I'm not sure. Got to take a sip while you guys are answering. Stay moving. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Monitors can be readjusted. Yes. So keep moving. So yes, monitors, I've heard so many people say, well, every time I change positions, they had to come in and adjust the monitor. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's true. But everyone's goal is to get the baby out. And so if the monitors have to be moved, so be it. Don't worry about it. I'm not joking that I have seen this happen a lot, where it's like, oh, if we're walking around, that monitor keeps, moving. Or I'll even have a nurse say, that position, the monitor kind of messes up. Well, unless they're worried about, like, we're concerned about the baby, we really need you to be in a certain position, the default should be to stay moving. So it just is. Kate says, I've heard if you move at all, it can mess with the monitors and the nurses freak out. Sometimes, it's not, sometimes, but that's okay. And you can just say, I really want to get the baby out, so I'm going to keep moving. I need to keep moving. That's my strategy. And that's okay. It's worth it. Okay, so the external fetal monitor, when it's on, sometimes it also picks up maternal heart rate. So your heart rate, the laboring person's heart rate. So sometimes they have to fix it. And I say this because there's a volume that they usually have it set so that people in labor can hear the heart rate. And you get used to the sound of that baby's heart rate. And then sometimes it goes down lower. I don't know why I'm trying to make the sound of a 90 beats per minute heart rate. It sounds different. And it's kind of scary, like, oh, something's going on. Well, yes, something could be going on with the baby, but it could be maternal heart rate. So depending upon the brand of these, they can also measure maternal heart rate. Sometimes a nurse will come in and put on a pulse oximeter, which is also measures the pulse, also measures your oxygenation, how good you are breathing. So that is a way to figure out, is it the baby? Is it maternal? Who is it? Good question, Lisbeth. How does it work with anterior placenta? So I have not seen a difference with anterior placentas and finding heart rate with these. It really, I really haven't seen a big difference. Personally, I had 2 anterior placentas, and it wasn't an issue. So it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, fetal heart rate. This is the external, and it is also, like I said, a little bit not 100% accurate, especially with moving. And there is an alternative, which I did not have a Chick-fil-A version. So you're just going to have to imagine with me. And it's more like a wire. So it's an internal fetal. It's actually called a fetal scalp electrode. Let me grab my fetus. I didn't mean to grab it by its feet. It is a wire that goes in the vagina, and then it hooks up to the monitors. And the wire, I hate describing this because it sounds worse than it is when you see it. But I would like to describe it so that you're familiar. It looks like a little metal, it's like a little wire screw, and it is twisted into a few layers of skin in the baby's head inside. So they thread it in and they turn it, and so they get an accurate fetal heart monitor. So that's called the fetal scalp electrode. Okay, so that's the internal monitor, and it's definitely more effective as long as it's put on right. I was at a birth recently where it was malfunctioning, and so that happens with equipment, but it is generally more accurate than this one. Okay, so we have talked about the 2 things they monitor: contractions and baby. And the 2 types: external, right, the discs, and internal, the straw and the wire. Okay, so now the big question is, when is it done? Do we have options? And what does research tell us? So I, as a Lamaze certified educator, it means that I keep up my certification. I follow research, always trying to bring the best evidence to my class. That's really high priority for me. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily match with what is practiced, which is hard, especially as an educator and as a student too, when you find out, like, well, my educator tells me that, it's one way, but my doctor practices this way. So it's a little bit of that situation here. Research tells us that intermittent monitoring is the safest for low risk people that do not have any kind of medication in their system, and don't have any risk factors. So low risk. Okay. So intermittent monitoring means usually that monitoring is done like 15 or 20 minutes out of a whole hour. Research actually there's been a lot of research on this, and they have said that it's actually healthier to monitor intermittently because that way it isn't, things aren't problems that aren't a concern aren't thought to be a concern. So meaning, oh, so baby looks bad. Is that a problem? We're going to do a C-section. And when they really dove into the details, they realized like, I don't know that was really necessary. That might have been a normal reaction with the baby. So intermittent monitoring for low risk people, not with no medication. So what I mean by that is if you are induced and you have medication for that, you need continuous monitoring, which is the other option, which is all the time from when that induction starts all the way to when the baby is born, not after the baby's born, until the baby's born. So if you're induced, if you have an epidural, if you get IV pain medication, so narcotics, IV narcotics, or if you have maybe like they're worried about your blood pressure, or if you have some other special situation that doesn't make you high risk. Okay. So for low risk people, it's really the best practice to do intermittent monitoring. And this is something that I highly suggest that you talk to your care provider. So remember, care provider is either your midwife or your doctor before you go into labor. So we will talk about formatting or creating a birth plan in another class, more in depth, but it's something I would put on a birth plan as well. Now, something that I've seen, this is like a super real life situation I want to share with you guys, is that so old-fashioned monitors, these old-fashioned, I mean, how they did it for a long time was these had wires that went to, they were wired. So maybe you had about this much wire connecting to the monitors, to the screen, everything. But a lot of hospitals have upgraded to wireless, which is lovely, especially if you want to be moving around, you want to get in the shower, or you want to get in the tub, whatever. Most of them are waterproof. You can, submerge them, everything. That's great. Here's the thing. What I've seen is sometimes people that want intermittent monitoring and the hospital offers wireless, that sometimes they're kind of pressured to get wireless because it's like, well, you've got wireless, so why wouldn't you just get that? Why wouldn't you just stay with that? That, you can do everything you want to do with the wireless, but it is different. It's different. And it's still something that's on you. It's still something that isn't backed up with research. I want to hear in the chat, what are you thinking about that? Can you imagine that? Do you have questions about that? Other things, continuous monitoring would be necessary for all those other reasons. If you're high risk, if you've had any meds, if you're being induced. And again, have that conversation with your care provider beforehand. If you have a preference, if you're wondering what they suggest, if you're wondering what they require, if they require, what your options are. And I always love these conversations before you go into labor. If you have, and it's something like if you guys are having a telehealth appointment, that's a great thing to ask about. Yeah, I really think so, that it's important to think about. So Adam, did I answer your question? You had asked about, is monitoring mandatory? Oh, also Monique had a question. How long would you say monitoring is enough to get a good idea of baby's stress level before I can keep movement going? Great question, Monique. So most care providers, when you get to your birthing location, they want to get like 20 minutes at minimum monitoring of baby and contractions before you can switch to an intermittent style monitoring. So it's usually about 20 minutes. Now, There are a few things they're looking for in that 20 minutes. They want to see that the baby is like, there's a variability to their heart rate. They want to see that the baby is reacting okay with contractions and that kind of thing. So sometimes that 20 minutes might last a little bit longer. I will say that often if someone is wanting intermittent monitoring, and I don't want to be negative, I want to be realistic with you guys. It's often you have to kind of advocate for yourself and say, like, is now a time that I can get the monitors off? Has it been long enough? Or is this a good time that I can take off the monitors? Partners, that's a great thing for you to also be able to ask. So from my experience, I have seen that it's something that you really have to advocate for. And it might have, my guess is that it has something to do with just the way hospital births are set up, where nurses sometimes have several patients and they can see the monitoring back at the nurse's station. So it might be easier to be able to just, have a look at each of their patients at once. But just because there's a convenience to it, I wouldn't go against research, because that's really important. So, yeah. Other things to note about the monitors, besides the fact that you might have options depending upon your health and what's going on. There is a volume control on the machine that reads it. And sometimes when the nurses come in to put the monitors on, they turn the volume up so they can hear it correctly. And then they leave and they forget to turn it down. Again, it's not their fault. It's just a small thing. But if you are the two people in the room that are laboring, it can be like maddening to just hear that just booming out. So ask the nurse how to control the volume, and if you control the volume. Hunter, you are awesome. Thank you, Hunter, for my time management. I love it. 30 minutes. I'm halfway there. Woo! Okay, I was thinking of a Bon Jovi song. That's going to show my age. We're halfway there. Anybody? Probably not. You guys are youngsters. Okay. Let's see what else. Okay, and I mentioned partners. That partner, don't stare at the monitor. It can be very mesmerizing. I'm just scrolling up to make sure that did I get all the questions? I think so far. Oh, Jeff, you got me. Oh, and Christina too. I love it. Living on a prayer. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention let me grab it, about this monitor, the internal uterine pressure catheter, IUPC. The other thing that is interesting about this one, I don't know, interesting is maybe not the right word, but the other thing this can do is, I mentioned it was a straw, right? Well, the interesting thing is they can hook up fluid and a pump and pump fluid up through the straw and into your uterus. And you might be wondering, what the heck would they do that for? So I've seen it done for two different things, for two different reasons. One, if the baby has had their first poop, which is meconium, they sometimes will put in a IUPC and run fluid up to dilute that poop. Dilute poop. Saturday night, and we're talking about diluting poop. Are the neighbors, are they having that much fun? I doubt it. I really doubt it. So if the baby poops inside the womb and it's thick meconium, they don't really want baby to be born with that thickness for them to possibly inhale or swallow. More inhale. So they run fluids. It's actually pretty cool that that's available. and give like a shower to the baby a little bit inside. Most of my clients that have had this done don't really mention that it's, or have not expressed that it's painful. Not really painful. Sometimes it can limit their movement a little bit because it's, as you can imagine, you've got like a bag and you've got a straw and you know, but I've still seen people be able to move around. You just say, yeah, you can move around. The other thing I've seen this used for is to help a baby that might have an issue where they are, let me grab the baby, where they have a cord. They call it, you'll hear it called in healthcare, the baby's got a cord issue or has a cord. Everybody has a cord, but it's kind of a slow, an easy way to say it. If we don't really know because we can't see exactly, but if there is the cord is being compressed by the baby, like maybe baby is kind of squishing the cord. Sometimes we'll see heart rate issues that has a worry that's kind of worrisome. Sometimes providers will put fluid, do this with fluid, add fluid to give some cushion, more cushion around the baby. I did not mention, I mean, you guys probably know this, but I didn't mention that your bag of water has to be broken, you know, has to have been ruptured for both of the internal monitors. Was anybody thinking that? Like, what about the bag of water? That was a small detail I didn't mention. So, bag of water broken for both of those. And so if they want to give more fluid around the baby, help the baby kind of move around, move away from that cord, I'll see it being done. So, yes, I know a couple of you said first time hearing this. Yeah. It's really interesting. It's a tool. It's a tool that is used to help. Before we talk about our coping strategy, I want to squeeze in one more topic that I was trying to decide, is it, hold on. Is it like a full day? And it's not a full day. Oh, I think I went past it. Hold on. Sorry, I'm pulling something up on my other monitor so that I can show you. So this is a strategy called the brain strategy. And I'm going slow because my brain is not working right now. I want to pull up the handy handouts. Here we go. Okay. So I wanted to show, this is inside when you purchase the 8 handy handouts. This is what it looks like. So this is the one you guys are very familiar with. I know, the limp and loose in labor. But along with that is this decision-making guide, the brain's strategy. And I always recommend, first of all, people print these out. Most of them print them out for labor. Again, cheat sheets. But the brain strategy is it's, to me, I use it all the time. After I learned it as a childbirth educator, I was like, this is golden. And some of you might already know this, but it's an acronym for what to think about when you need to make a decision in life, but in our case, in labor. So the first thing to think about is, what are the benefits of this? So I want to use this in talking about monitoring. So let's say your care provider wanted to change from external monitors to internal monitors. So they wanted to take them off, take the discs off and do the straw and the wire. And you were faced with that as a option or, a decision-making point. First of all, I'm going to say this several times in the next 14 days, I think, but always ask for time alone with your partner to talk about it. So it is so helpful to have your support team to have 5 minutes away from the staring eyes, not that it's their fault, staring eyes of healthcare providers for you to make a decision. Okay. So imagine this this takes place alone. To think about these questions. One, what are the benefits of doing this? What's the pros? The second one, what are the risks? Are there risks associated with it? Like the internal fetal scalp electrode. Is there any risk if they put it in too far, or, put it on, it doesn't work or whatever? Are there alternatives? So is the alternative just maybe switch from wireless to wired, or maybe I don't move around as much, or something like that. Number 4, the I, is instinct. So what's my gut telling me? And if you're not someone who goes with your gut feel, it's okay. This might seem strange, but I think if we tap into sort of what is our gut saying, that we do have some kind of instinct. But this fourth, I'm not counting right. This fifth one, N, the not now or nothing, is the most powerful question you can ask in labor. What if we just do nothing or hold off on this decision for later? It is often like, oh, sure, yeah, we don't have to decide right now. We can wait. And sometimes when you wait, it becomes an issue that doesn't even exist anymore. It's a moot point. It's like, oh, that's right. We were going to decide on that. And here we are pushing and not needing to decide. So that's my most powerful one. And then the last one is you don't have to remember this because some people just teach it as brain, but I like brains because the S is like, just don't be a jerk when you ask, be kind, because we all know that you get things are easier with kindness. And I've seen sometimes people have that sort of combative, protective way in labor, and it sometimes can backfire. So brain strategy is a great tool for even say they were recommending continuous monitoring, and you were like, well, what's the benefit? Can we just maybe do intermittent until later? Not now. Yeah, it's something to think about. Good question, Samantha. Does internal monitoring keep you from moving around? Yes and no. What I mean by this is people feel like it keeps you from moving around. And I've also seen nurses and doctors say, well, you might not be able to move around as well. But so they're wired. So you have to stay close enough to the machine that the wire will reach. But there are so many positions that you can do on the bed. So hands and knees, leaning against the back, pull a chair right up to the monitors. It might be kind of messy if they're doing the fluid part. Could be dripping out. Put on some mesh underwear. That's okay. You might not be squatting and walking all over the room, but you can still move around. I think people sometimes feel oh, great, now I got this. And so now I'm just going to get in the bed. I know I had a client once that was hoping to go without an epidural. And she was like, well, now I got to get an epidural. And I was like, oh, well, what's going on? Why? Are you feeling different? She's like, well, because I can't move anymore. And I was like, no, that's not the case. You can still move. Yeah. Nice. Oh, Lisbeth says, I even wore my diaper with the internal monitors. I love that you called it a diaper. Your pad in your big mesh underwear, maybe? Is that your diaper? Tell me. Yeah. So good. We have a real life example right here with Lisbeth. Awesome. Okay, question from Tim. Oh, Tim is he's giving us some real life information. You should also be assertive. Sometimes they push back. Oh, gotta fight for your birth plan. Tim, real life example. Partners in the room, partners in the chat watching, please take note of this. This is a fresh partner straight off of birth. You do have to be assertive. Yes. And going, to these questions of why, what's the risk? What's the hurry? What's the wait? Why can't we do this? Why can't we try this? Can you explain that to me? Can you give me more information? Can I, just can you explain it? Because sometimes when people are asked to explain, they're kind of like, well, okay, So thank you, Tim. That's so helpful. So helpful. Yeah. And Keisha, I get you. If you have no information, the doctors will eat you alive. Man, I could soapbox this one for hours. This is one of the reasons I'm doing what I do. This is why I want everyone to take childbirth class. This is why I make those silly videos like week after week, is like, I want people to know the information so that they can make better choices, so that you guys can make better choices, that you can go into birth and have a positive experience, even if things don't go exactly the way that you planned, that you feel like you understood and you were in control and you had options, and that you felt like you were heard, listened to, and you were, you were respected. And having good information and knowing questions can get you that feeling and get you there. So pat yourself on the back for being here and taking time. And I could go on and on this topic. And that's seriously why I'm here. Yay, Tim. Oh, just made my day. Yes. And Lizbeth, this is a good point. It's not always presented like you have options. It's definitely the smallest thing, which leads me to my quiz. The smallest thing, I'm grabbing something, don't go away, is with the hospital gown. Okay. The hospital gown, you're handed one and you're like, when you get there, here, go ahead and put this on and I'll be back in a minute. And it's like, you were not told, hey, you can wear this, or you can just wear whatever you're wearing, or put on a different outfit. It doesn't matter to us. Do whatever you want. That's not presented that way. And so people feel like, oh, they gave me a hospital gown. I guess I have to wear it. So it leads me to my giveaway. Giveaway time. We have 15 minutes. We can do this because my coping strategy is super simple. So my giveaway, I did a video a couple weeks ago where I did a product review of two hospital gowns that are you buy them. They're not regular hospital gowns. And I compared them because I get this question a lot from my clients about which one do you like best, or which one should I have? So I did a video on it. So I'm giving away tonight a hospital gown, which either one of these two or another size, we can get the size that is needed. Or if you're someone that's watching that you would have no need or interest in the hospital gown, your other choice, if you're the winner, is my favorite water bottle. Okay. So here's the deal. Let me know in the chat. Are you ready? Because I'm going to give you 4 questions, and I'm going to get it all set up right now. Okay. So, here. This is what I want. Email the quiz answers to me at info@supportingher. So, tell me this. Okay. Comments. I have to go back and forth. We got some readies. Nice. Okay, good. So that means you have something to take notes on. Here's the big thing that you have to remember. Don't put the answers in the chat. and you put an answer in the chat, then you're disqualified because it's a quiz. You're going to email me. So don't get excited and put the answer in the chat. You guys know, you understand. Okay. One of them, this one hopefully is easy. Could be hard. I'm talking to myself in the third person. What is Alice's favorite color? Number 1. Number 2. Which childbirth education organization am I certified through? I did mention that today. And I usually mention it at the beginning of every video. Usually. Not every time, but certification is important to me. So I usually try to mention it. Okay. Number 3. I'll go through them all one more time quickly. Number 3 is name 2 things that I suggest that you have for your car ride in labor. Now, if you're induced, you won't go through a car ride in labor, but I created a video maybe like 6 weeks ago. Could have been 3 weeks. You know how time is these days. About the car ride in labor. It's a good video with lots of information. So if you haven't watched it yet, watch it, and then you'll know the answer to this question. And then the last one is, what did I use this thing? Hold. What did I use this thing to demonstrate in class 3? What was I demonstrating this by showing you guys this? What was I demonstrating? What concept was I talking about? Okay, so number 1, what's my favorite color? Number 2, that one's you're gonna have to guess probably because I've never mentioned it. But what childbirth education organization am I certified through? Number 3 is name 2 things I suggest for the car ride to the hospital to have. 2 of the things. There's several. And number 4, what did I use this thing to demonstrate in class? Okay, you guys got it. The last thing I need you to do, everybody sees right now how many live viewers there are don't put it in the chat. You see how many live viewers there are right now watching. So include that in your message to me, and then I'll know that you're watching live. Okay? Cool. What do you guys think? So you can either choose a hospital gown or the water bottle. So even if a hospital gown is not in your future, everybody can use that funky water bottle, right? And don't email me now. Email me after I finish because you're not going to want to miss. I got to turn off this banner. Where is it? You're not going to want to miss this coping strategy. This coping strategy that we're talking about today, if you're an insider, you might have read it. I think I put it in the email. If you are not an insider or don't have any idea what I'm talking about, you can get an email from me, become an insider, in the link in the description below. And I send out an email. I'll send out different things. Heads up. So this strategy, I'm going to stop playing with my straw monitor, is one that is what I have found gets the most uncomfortable stares from my students when I demonstrate it. But I hear back from so many people that once they try it in labor, they're like hooked. So funny story, I've got 6 minutes. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna we're gonna make this happen, and we're gonna get a 30-second practice, I promise. Talking to a neighbor who walked by my house today, and of course we were 6 feet apart wearing masks. It was one of those conversations. And I was telling her I was teaching a class tonight. She said, what are you teaching? And I said, I'm teaching this coping strategy called vocalization. And she was like, oh, that saved me. I mean, I was just like, oh, and so she's on the sidewalk, right? And our kids are in the front lawn, the two 11-year-olds, her son, my son. She's like, those contractions came, and I was just like, oh, low, you got to be low. She's like, why does that feel so good? Oh, and she's doing it on the sidewalk. Of course, my son was just like, oh yeah, that's just somebody pretending to give birth or whatever. And her son was like, what is my mom doing? It was awesome. It was so good. Okay, so the strategy is called vocalization. And I love it because you can layer it with stuff. You can layer it with the other coping strategies. And it is exactly what I said. It's making low tones when you exhale. So you can layer it with breathing. So deep breath in. When you breathe out, hoo, low, ah, oh. Any of those low noises. You don't want to be high. Imagine, ah. That doesn't sound like somebody who's powerful and coping, right? I'm going to tell you, the first time you do it, when you practice this, you're going to feel like a weirdo, probably, if you're like most people. When I try to get people to do this in class, sometimes they're kind of like, oh, looking around like, is everybody doing this? Yes, this is, Lizbeth said, is this the mooing face? Yeah, no, you can do moo, low. It is that phase. It's that part of being low and making those tones. The best time to do this, you can imagine, is not early labor, because you are going to get really sick of things and it is not needed. It's not needed. This is like you're when you're pulling out all the stops, when things are just getting strong and you need to throw in another layer, you're going to put it on there. So I'm talking active labor, I'm talking transition. That's when you're going to be making those noises, using that. It feels a lot better if your partner's doing it too. So when I talk about that mirroring strategy, I know I showed you guys in the handout that is part of the ebook, the mirroring strategy. Mirroring noises is excellent. You don't feel as weird. Also, it's something that partners, you can bring out if you're like, oh, we need some more different coping. And you just go, ooh. Your partner in labor will be like, oh, ooh, is this what we're doing now? Ooh, let's do this. It is totally important to practice it. It is something to try. I really, if you put it on your list, practice it, even if you're feeling a little bit like, Alice is going out there. Alice is out there tonight with her strategies. Can I just stay with my Captain Morgan? You can, but you might need to add something to Captain Morgan. Okay, great. So we are going to practice. I know we've only have a few minutes left. We've got 30 seconds. We've got time to do our 30-second practice. What we're going to do is we're going to layer them up. I want you to think limp and loose. I want you to think breath. I want you to think movement, get in a position, do some rhythm, breathing, your limp, and your ooh. Okay, 30 seconds. We're doing it now. You did it. You did it. I promised. Every night you got to do a practice. Thank you for hanging out with me on a Saturday night and talking about this important topic. I cannot tell you how cool it is to be able to see familiar faces in the chat, for us to have these conversations and to talk about some really important things that have a big effect. And that's what I think childbirth education is. which is why I promised to bring it for the next however many days. What are we on now? 9 days? 9 days left? Till the 14th. Why can't I do math? I have an engineering degree. Till the 14th. I'm going to bring it. You guys show up. I love it. If you want to support the channel, sharing this video, sharing any of the other videos with forums or neighborhoods, or I don't even know, people you think that might find it useful. And if you find it useful and you think someone else will find it useful, it is a huge help to me for that share. So I really appreciate it in advance for any, and I know a lot of you guys have already shared it already, which is amazing. And I'm going to leave this words from Tim as we go. Our new dad who just came back to tell us our good news, which is awesome. So tomorrow night, same time, same place. And don't forget to become an insider. I'll send you an email and get those emails about the quiz in. And we're going to do another quiz tomorrow night. So I'll see you then. Till then, bye guys.